Thank you for your patience. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. It's 9
Hmm.
p.m. here, and I'm so
Okay.
excited to connect with you. I
Yeah,
listened
yeah.
to a few of your episodes. I
Oh, thank
love
you.
your vibe. I love what you're doing,
Oh,
and I'm truly honored to be invited and to have this conversation with you.
Anna, you're making me blush. And I really am blushing. I promise you. I promise you. Thank you.
I can tell all the way from here.
There you go.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to empower you to live your best audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here sharing insights and inspirations with you, and I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us on this journey of self-discovery and transformation. Now, imagine your life as a beautiful garden. In this garden, every habit you cultivate is like a seed you plant. Some seeds will grow into vibrant flowers, bring beauty and joy, while others may sprout into weeds. And those weeds often can choke out all the good in our lives. Anna Shilina is our guest today, and she emphasizes the importance of distinguishing between limiting and expansive habits, those that hold you back versus those that propel you towards your goals. Just as a gardener must tend to their gardens, we must actively choose to nourish the habits that uplift us. They present, if you look at sort of the present moment, for example, it's the only time we can initiate change. While waiting too long can allow those weeds of negative habits to become deeply rooted in our lives. Anna encourages us to cultivate a supportive network and fill our lives with meaningful activities that replace those limiting habits. Furthermore, she underscores the importance of self-compassion and understanding that setbacks are a natural part of the journey towards lasting transformation. Today, Anna, a little bit about Anna here because she's a human behavior therapist, specialist rather, and the author of the book Habit Freedom. With over a decade of experience in mindset coaching, Anna is dedicated to helping individuals unlock their potential and break free from limiting habits. Her work focuses on transforming the relationship we have with ourselves and our habits, guiding us towards a much more fulfilling life. Anna's insights are especially relevant for anyone looking to make meaningful changes in their lives. Her unique perspective on habits as either limiting or expansive offers a fresh framework for understanding our behaviors and the impact they have on our personal growth. So now that we've got the table all set, let's turn to our conversation with Anna. Enjoy. Hey, Anna, thank you for joining me on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here.
I appreciate you and everything that you're doing here on this platform. Thank you so much for having me here.
This is awesome. This is awesome. I was saying before we went live here, it's just very cool to be able just to connect with people from all around the world. You're in Cape Town, South Africa, and being able to engage in conversations that have the potential to, have a huge impact on the life of others. So thank you for helping me sort of fulfill my little mission and do good out in the world. Here on this podcast, we spend much time encouraging individuals to live that best, audacious life and that pathway to doing so. It's going to be different for every single one of us. There's things that impede or come our way that impact our progress, but there's still that journey we've got to take nonetheless. And so you spend a lot of time focusing on habits, and habits lead to actions, and they can lead to positive actions or negative actions depending on the habits you choose. And so maybe as a starting point, we can open up the gateway here, have you come on through, introduce yourself to our audience, and perhaps talk about the work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
I'm the author of the book Habit Freedom on ditching limiting habits, enhancing performance, and enriching relationships. And how I got to being the author of this book is I've been coaching for about 10 years. I'm a human behavior specialist. I
Okay.
absolutely love coaching and helping people unlock their potential. Done a lot of mindset coaching, business coaching, sales coaching, all sorts of things. And then what ended up happening in a profound twist of fate is that I started to struggle with my habits, and I was struggling with them so much, and I was double struggling with them because not only was I struggling with limiting habits like drinking too much alcohol, doom scrolling, binge watching series, eating unconsciously that didn't make me feel good. I was struggling also with the fact that I was struggling because I had done so much work in myself. I'd been to every personal development seminar, I'd studied the human behavior. So I was like, why am I still struggling? And I tried all the different methods out there. I read the books and the podcasts and hired the coaches, and
Sure.
they didn't work for me. So it was a gift in the end because I had to figure out a new way, one that did work for me and that I got to then put into the book Habit Freedom, which encompasses 5 core relationships that we all need to break free from any limiting habit. And I call habits limiting, not bad, because a lot of
Okay.
people say,
Okay.
like, I have this
Okay.
bad habit and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
like to challenge people to rethink that a little bit because, some things that seem bad today, tomorrow or the next day aren't so bad, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
such a, and what's one bad for one person isn't bad for another person.
Sure.
But I
Okay.
feel like a much more useful metric is whether a habit is expanding you and getting you closer to your goals, or it's limiting you and contracting you and making you into a smaller version of yourself.
Love the
So
distinction.
instead of calling habits good or bad, I call them limiting or expansive.
And really what that does, it gets you to focus on really what the focus should be at. It's where we're going and in that direction, as you said, of our goals. And so thank you for that. I'm not thought of that way, but as you say it out loud, it totally makes sense. So then, you talked about yourself and sort of your own journey. What got you out of it, those habits? What was there, one spark instance, or you just kind of woke up one day and said, I'm good?
So my specific story ended in, so I've had the privilege, it was a divine privilege of having many limiting habits. And some of them, and I'll focus on the alcohol one for a minute here. The alcohol one did end in a rock bottom
Okay.
where I had hired a sobriety coach and it worked for a little bit, but then it stopped working and I was relapsing on and off and I couldn't really keep myself on the straight and narrow. And then I just had this awful 2 week bender that just left me feeling very like deep shame and disgust. And I was hating the person that I'd become. I'd burnt friendships to the ground. I'd burnt my life to the ground pretty much. I could not believe, and this is why I feel that it's also given me so much compassion, is because I could not believe that I had ended up in that situation. Like, like if you had told me 20 years ago, 10 years ago, Anna, this is going to be your fate and this is going to be where you'd end up, I'd be like, there is no ways. I'm like high performing in this and high achieving in
Yep.
that, and I have all
Yep.
these goals and dreams.
Yep.
Like, why would I end up
What are you
in
talking
such a
about? Right. Yeah.
messy situation? And so I really do believe that, sometimes we can we can have such a varied experience of life, right? And like I said, it's given me a lot of compassion because I was shocked that I ended up in such a situation. And I think that anyone can end up in all sorts of situations, right? So, but the cool thing, I work with clients all the time who don't end up in rock bottom situations because I've also, with my food habits, it's not like I had like a rock bottom. I was sick and tired of feeling a certain way. And because we have an imagination, we can forward project what would happen if we do stick with that habit, right? So, some of my clients who don't have rock bottom moments, who do want to stop drinking, we just jot down all the pain that that habit is causing them. And then if they don't stop it for the next year or 5 years or 10 years, what that pain starts to accumulate to. And so and we're very lucky as human beings with our imaginations because instead of actually visiting rock bottoms, sometimes if we imagine them, it's good
Right.
enough
Right.
to really like fuel that sustainable change.
Right. And rock bottom isn't a place that it's fun, right? Like I mean, that it's just not. It's at the bottom, and but it also the word humbling comes to mind, right? It's very humbling, and it's at that moment is when you are forced to take that mirror and look at yourself, right? And I think that's what the pathway to change is.
Yeah, it's so raw and so real. And you can't really hide at that stage because I feel as humans, we're very good at pretending and
Hmm.
hiding from ourselves and telling ourselves stories. And at that stage, when you really have to face off with yourself, and you realize that rock bottom has a basement, and that was a shocking revelation as well. And eventually, I just knew that if I didn't give up, it would have to end. All cycles come to an end. All
Sure.
habits come to an end. For me, there were many, many lessons. Also, she's still a very, very dear friend of mine. And she told me, look, if the alcohol is still calling me, it has something to teach me. And if I'm just open to what it's teaching me, then once the lesson lands, then I can be set free from it, right? It's only when I was like really fighting it and go like, no, this shouldn't be my life. No, this isn't, I desperately didn't want addiction to be part of my story. Like I
Hmm.
didn't,
Hmm.
I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be a burden on my family. I didn't want to be a disappointment. Had all these stories of how I was less than because of that. Obviously, it's not so. It was just the
Yep.
stories that I was telling in my head. But at the end of the day, it was um it was a really beautiful place because when you're really stripped down at this rock bottom and you really
Yep.
do face yourself and you get to rebuild, there's a lot of peace in that.
Mm. There are people who are listening that are going to say, look, this habit I got here, I've been doing my whole life, like smoking. Like I'm forever smoking. It's too late for me. I can't change. What's the answer to people like that who feel that because they've been doing something beyond a certain for a certain period of time that they can't change?
Hmm. I'd ask a series of questions. The first question is, and I borrow these questions from Byron Katie. Byron Katie has this worksheet it's called The Work, and I love these questions. And the first question is that true
Okay.
that you can't change? And the next question is, are you absolutely certain? How do you know that that's absolutely true, that you can't change? The next question after that is, how do you behave or react when you believe the thought that you can't change? Because at the end of the day, that is a limiting belief.
Yes.
So when you believe this thought, what happens? Oh, I'm despondent, I'm whatever, my energy goes. Like, where's the motivation? Where's the life force? Okay, cool. The next question, and this is by far my favorite question in the series of questions, which is, who would you be without this thought?
Good question.
Boom. All of a sudden you would be free to create whatever life you want from the present moment
Yes.
without weighing you down by your story of the past, whether it's been one day, 10 days, 10 decades, or 10 lifetimes. Every cycle needs to come to an end. So the thing that really got me through my struggle was I knew it would have to end. So I'm like, either it ends now or soon, or it ends in a few years, a few decades, a few lifetimes. And so because I knew it had to end, like I said, every season, every cycle, we are nature. We're not just part of nature. So if I look at nature, I'm like, in nature, everything changes. So in me, everything changes all the time. So if that's the case, then I wanted to do whatever I could to get it to change now because, at the end of the day, I would either have like the struggle and the discomfort of changing my habit,
Hmm.
or I would have the struggle of laying in a hospital bed somewhere. Which
Gotcha.
which discomfort and struggle would I choose?
Mm.
Right? So
Mm.
if you're choosing, and most people are just unconsciously choosing the discomfort of health issues down the road, whether it's smoking or vaping or drinking or eating unhealthily. It's a discomfort and a pain that you're choosing. At the end of the day, which pain do you choose? Do
Mm.
you choose the pain and discomfort of stopping now, or do you choose the pain and discomfort of being unhealthy in the future? It
Yeah.
is a choice.
Choice. Yes, yeah. And when you frame it that way, I think you can help people understand the significance of that choice to make, right? And why it is their choice, regardless where they are in life. Again, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this thing. It doesn't mean it's never ever too late, right? And that's really, I think, the important point in all this.
Yes, exactly. I love that you just said that. It's never too late. And the other thing to be mindful of is that now is the only time it exists that exists to make the change and make the shift. There is no tomorrow. Tomorrow, it doesn't get easier. I guarantee you, tomorrow comes and it's harder. Do you know why? Pretty
Mm.
much because we have neural pathways, right? So
Mm.
if I say yes to the limiting habit today,
Mhm.
then that pathway gets more and more ingrained. So by the time tomorrow comes and I'm like, oh, diet starts on Monday. It's harder on Monday than it is today.
Yes,
I promise you
yes,
that. What
yes,
happens is a lot of people wait for the pain to escalate so much that they have to make the change, right? The doctor
right.
tells them you have to stop smoking, you have to eat healthier, you have to stop drinking, whatever it is, right? Or they're shopping so much that they have to stop spending because they've got into debt or whatever. But we don't have to wait for that pain to accumulate because, again, we have these imaginations. So we can
Yep.
imagine the rock bottom. We don't have to visit it. We can imagine it and visit it in our minds. And that way, when you pair that with understanding that now is the only time that exists and now is the easiest it will ever get to change the
Mm.
habit, that's where the freedom really unlocks because there's no freedom in the future, there's no freedom in the past. The only time that there's ever freedom is in the present moment.
Explain that if you don't mind. The difference of past and present and future and why freedom exists only now and not before or after.
So what is freedom? Freedom is a feeling,
Okay.
and feelings are accessible to us at any given moment. So we have these goals, right? We're like, when I get this house and this car and this promotion or this wife or this family or this health or whatever that it is, I will be happy or free or whatever like whatever feeling we attach to it. At the end of the day, we create these goals for ourselves for a feeling. That's it. At the end of the day, we're all chasing a feeling. But the feeling, I don't know if you've ever reached a huge goal where you're like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted this.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
this. Oh my gosh, like, how long does that feeling last?
It's moments. Yeah. It's just, it comes and it goes.
It's just the moment. And it's a great feeling, but then
Yes.
we move on, right? And the thing
I've
is,
heard mountain climbers talk about that feeling when you get to the top of the summit, right? Like you get to the very top and it's like, okay, now I'm here, right? And it's that journey that the real value of going up the top of up the hill. When you get to the top, you're like, okay, I'm here. All right, let's go back down now, right? That's it.
yes, exactly, exactly, exactly that. And we all know what it feels like for that feeling to exist and then be snatched away. And then it's like the next thing, right? Like, and the next thing, and the next thing. And so, the end of the day, we don't have to wait for that promotion or that goal, that big thing to feel the feeling. We can access that feeling in the present moment. And the
Mm,
more we train ourselves to be able to feel any feeling that we command our minds and bodies and hearts to do, the more masterful we become of our state. Right? Instead
gotcha.
of just being reactive and reacting to the world and the impulses and things like that. And one of my favorite ways to understand freedom actually comes from a Viktor Frankl quote. I'm not
Okay.
sure if you've heard, Man Search for
Hmm.
Meaning, and he talks about the space between the stimulus and the response. That's where we have
Mm,
our freedom, right?
yes.
So being able to observe a stimulus like a craving. For example, I'm quitting smoking, right?
Yep.
Or
Yep.
vaping, which is huge. Like more and more people are doing it, and more and more people quitting these days. And so, say I'm going to have that craving, have that stimulus. My freedom is in the space between that stimulus and my response.
Right. Right.
And that only exists in the present moment. It doesn't exist in a
Mm.
story of the past, and it doesn't
Mhm.
exist in a story of the future. It can only exist in the present moment. And that's why, in my book, Habit Freedom, I talk so much about our relationship with the now, with the present moment, that we like to consume it away. We like to scroll it away and watch it away and eat it
Yeah.
away and all these
Yeah.
things. But when we really get present, that's where we can experience that deep freedom that we
Mm.
all desire.
Mm. Yeah, no, well, thank you for elaborating on that because as you say that, I know exactly what you're referencing in that very small window, but it's still that moment. That still is a window. Kind of like the choice, like we have that choice. It's still our choice, right? We're which pain we want more, right? Which discomfort do we want more? So I certainly see
Yes.
that. Um, so if I've gotten to the point where I've identified my habit and I know that I want to kick this habit. Okay. I now know what it is. I want to kick it. What does the next sort of steps in the process look like?
Hmm. So the first step is to the relationship with discomfort, which means start like you're going to feel uncomfortable. So most people, by the time that craving kicks in, that temptation kicks in, they're like, "Oh, this is too hard," right? Whereas when you
Mm-hmm.
expect it to be hard and say, "I am choosing the discomfort of the craving,"
Okay.
right? The old me used to do it this way, the new me does it a different way. There
Mm-hmm.
is guaranteed to be a discomfort. I'm choosing it. On top of that, not only am I lamenting it and not am I wishing it away, it's like, oh, I wish I didn't have this craving. The next thing that you can do is you can celebrate that discomfort and go like,
Okay.
oh my gosh, feeling this discomfort means the meaning that I give it, because we're all meaning making machines. That's a Tony
Yep.
Robbins quote, right? So the meaning that I give it is that I'm setting myself free. And that way it becomes less and less dense and heavy. And so depending how hooked or attached you are to that habit, some
Mm-hmm.
people will have a little bit of discomfort, some people have a lot. And that's the one thing, is really that relationship with discomfort. The next relationship I call the relationship with the light. And what I mean by that is things that light you up, right? So, in the absence of a grand, beautiful life that we love, that lights us up,
Mm-hmm.
we turn to cheap dopamine. We turn to the television, we turn to the scrolling and the food and the alcohol and whatever else, because that gives us like just like it's like that false prophet. It just promises you just enough, right? But
Right.
it
Right.
leaves you feeling shittier and shittier.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when we fill our lives with connections and creativity and music and nature and things that really like light us up from our
Mm-hmm.
core,
Yep.
then the numbing habits and the limiting habits, there's no space for them, right? Because nature abhors a vacuum. So if we don't
Okay.
fill our time and space with things that light us up, that relationship with the light, then the denser energies of the denser habits are going to have space to,
Gotcha.
the way where they consume your day. So those are the first two things. And then the
Yeah.
third thing is really to connect with other people who are
Ah.
inspired to be free from their limiting habits and who are doing epic things in life.
Like a
And
support network.
yes, a support network, a community. We're all tribal
Yeah.
beings. We rub
Yeah.
off on each other. Our
Yep.
energy is so contagious, right? So if you're hanging around a bunch of other smokers, it's going to be much harder to ditch that habit than if you're hanging around with nobody that smokes. So it really is about uh, a reality check with your network, with the people around you who is supporting the new you and your evolution by way of displaying and their behavior and who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and who is holding you back, and maybe you need to distance yourself, no, maybe not forever, for a short time, but it is
Mm-hmm.
important to surround yourself with people who are going to support the person you're becoming and not necessarily the person that you always were.
Gotcha. Gotcha. There's a part of the habit breaking process in my mind that I think is an important one, and that's the ability to give ourselves some grace, particularly in those moments when maybe we fall off the wagon. Like maybe we go 7 straight days without this habit. We're feeling good, and the eighth day it's that moment of weakness, and we go back. We still have the opportunity to restart again and start all over again. Um, but to do so and give ourselves grace for our mess ups or our setbacks, I think is also very important.
So important. And to understand that it's part of the journey, not
Mm.
separate, not apart, right? Like all those times, I had so many day ones, I could fill a cookie jar with confetti. I'm not even joking. I used to make these videos on my
Mhm.
phone just saying, don't drink Anna. So like I'd wake up in the morning on day one or day two or day three, and I'd be like, oh, you can do this, you can do
Yeah,
this, because like I give into these like 5 p.m. cravings for that like one glass
sure,
of wine, and then it
sure.
ended up being like a bottle or two of wine later. But yeah, I had to learn that relationship with grace and compassion for myself,
Mm.
and knowing like, okay, well, if I just don't give up, it will it will come to an end, and understanding that every so-called relapse or setback is part of the journey. It's getting me one step closer. It's just like, if you knew you were 50 rejections away from the love of your life and you were like wanting to meet the love of your life, how quickly would you get through those 50 rejections? And
Sure.
it's the same thing here. If you knew you were 50 relapses away from total freedom from this habit that you hate, or this habit that's holding you
Yep.
back, how quickly would you get through those relapses and those
That's right.
setbacks? Like you just go for it.
That's right. That's
And
right.
so that's the mindset piece of it.
Yeah, and listen, that is so in line with kind of what we talk about here on this podcast quite regularly. We talk about being audacious is because it's just that. It's like going for it, as you just said. Forget you got to have like a really short memory. Forget what happened yesterday, right? That was yesterday. It's what are you going to do today to set you up for tomorrow? And sometimes, you won't know when you get, you won't know what it'll look like when you get there. We don't know, right? But that doesn't mean we don't take that first step anyways. And that's really what gets me really excited about this because I think the potential is within every single one of us. And whether it's forming habits that will expand us or reducing habits that will limit us. See, I'm using your language. See, I learned, right? It's important
Yeah.
for us to take that in mind because when we can do so, we can that grace and compassion we just talked about, we can afford that to ourselves that much quicker.
Yes. And the other piece of this is that many, if not most, limiting habits are actually a result of things that happen in our childhood.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. So I didn't start off drinking as a child, but I did start escaping the present moment as a child because there was a lot of conflict in my household when I was very young. And so my escape was academia, right? So I just like that was how I would dissociate from the pain of the present moment because the present moment didn't feel safe, it didn't
Yep.
feel enjoyable.
Understood.
So by the time I was in my late teens and alcohol was introduced into my social circles, it was it was, now that I look back on it, of course I took to it like a fish to water because it helped me again escape the present moment. But the behavior of escaping the present moment wasn't born when I started drinking. It was born when I was very, very young and was trying to, not feel the conflict in the household. And so, with that compassion that we talk about and that grace, I had to reparent my 6-year-old and 10-year-old self, and really talk to myself like that child, and not because it was I was acting from that wounded child, and I had to
Yes,
do a
yes,
lot
yes,
of inner child healing
yes.
so that I didn't feel that the present moment was unsafe or wasn't pleasant, that
Right.
I could just, really finally get into a different headspace about that. And so So yeah, that really helped me have a lot more grace and compassion with myself when I
Yeah.
realized that I'm not talking to an adult, but I'm talking to myself,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
person who keeps making this like terrible decision over and over again. I'm actually talking to a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old girl. And what are the words that I'd say to her? And I wouldn't berate her and tell her how horrible she is and she'd never get over, like, I'd be very loving to her. And that helped the process a lot.
Oh, I love that. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful. I guess that's a beautiful learning for you too, right? Like in terms of how who you're actually talking to. That's beautifully said, and I appreciate you for mentioning that. Anna, this has just been phenomenal insights. I really do appreciate the manner in which you've broken that down the habit forming process, if you will, or even habit breaking process. And again, the language around being expansive or limiting, I think is really important because that helps with the mindset shift that you've talked about. And so those are great lessons for anyone that's looking to connect with you directly. You mentioned you've got a book, right? If anyone wants to maybe connect with you, maybe coached by you, where can we send them?
Yeah, the book is at habitfreedom.com, but quite simple to find. And then on Instagram, it's just my name, Anna Shilina, and I welcome DMs about habits and relationships. Those are two things that I coach because, at the end of the day, the relationship with ourselves is the first, last, and longest relationship we ever had.
Well,
And
yeah.
when I started writing the bigger book on relationships, I realized this is the most important relationship. And the way to nurture this relationship with ourselves is through our habits. That's how we create self-love and self-trust and self-respect. And so all questions about relationships and habits are welcome in my Instagram at Anna Shilina. And again, that URL for the book is habitfreedom.com.
Oh man! So we're gonna make sure that all the contact details are in the show notes below, so listeners can connect with you. This is again just such a delightful conversation. I appreciate the insights. I think again particularly around the mindset shift is an important one because any sort of significant change in our lives, it does start with our mind first. And so once you've got that, not that the rest of it is smooth sailing, obviously, but I think that really helps set us up for good stuff after that. So thank you. And thank you for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me here. One of my favorite words in the English language ever is audacious. So when I saw this opportunity, I could not say no to it.
Oh,
So I
man.
love what you
Back, we are here on the podcast. In our conversation today, Anna shared profound insights about the nature of habits and the importance of self-compassion. The one point that really resonated deeply with me was her emphasis on the idea that every setback is not a failure, but rather a stepping stone on the path to transformation. She artfully illustrated how understanding our past and nurturing our inner child can lead to healthier choices in the present. I loved how she framed the conversation around the idea of cultivating a life filled with joy and connection rather than focusing on eliminating negative habits. It's a beautiful reminder that we are not just trying to break free from something, we're also striving to embrace something even greater. If you've been inspired by Anna's insights and want to learn more about her, I encourage you to connect with her directly. You can find her Instagram at Anna Shilini, as well as her book Habit Freedom is available at habitfreedom.com. All the contact details and additional resources will be included in the show notes below. Anna is also offering exclusive coaching sessions for those who are looking to dive deeper into their personal development journey. Be sure to check out again the show notes for all those details on how to take advantage of this great opportunity. I want to thank you for tuning in and checking out another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. Remember, living audaciously means, choosing to embrace change, cultivate expansive habits, and surround yourself with a supportive community. If you found pleasure or enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, or share with family and friends if you haven't already done so. Of course, this helps our podcast to grow and reach even more people out there looking to chase their audacious lives. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.